It's a pleasant good morning to another edition of the Star Good Morning Show here on Star Television. Today being Monday the 12th of August 2019. We're broadcasting live from our media on Center 3 Mama Street, Bookfields in Freetown. My name is Abdul Rahman Kamara. Top stories in the program. The second and third edition of the book Ponder My Thought was on Thursday, August 8, 2019, launched at the British Council Auditorium in Freetown. Center for Coordination of Youth Activities, Action Aid Sierra Leone, community stakeholders, other civil society organizations, together with the European Union, has on Friday 9 August 2019 launched the Citizen Report on the Community Scorecard with the theme Building an Active Civil Society for Improved Gender Responsive Public Service Delivery, especially for women and girls to attain sustainable development in Sierra Leone at the Bow District, at the Bow District Council Hall in Freetown. And Muslims in Sierra Leone have joined their counterparts across the world to celebrate the Eid al-Adha, the Feast of the Lamb. My guest in the studio is engineer Andrew Kamokeli, author of the book Ponder My Thought. He's here to tell me more on the significance of this launch. Kamokeli, good morning, welcome to.
Good morning, Abdul.
I know it's been a while not having you in the studios.
Yes.
Great. Today we're going to have a very fine day.
Yeah.
Remember, you can be part of the program by sending us messages on the number 077 600 324. The Star Good Morning Show is proudly sponsored by Rocket Commercial Bank.
SIM Couple allow old and young to make deposit and withdraw cash from their account at any time and anywhere. With Rokel Commercial Bank SIM Couple, you can send and receive money at any place and any time. Rokel Commercial Bank don't make life better for we all.
Most welcome from that commercial break. We move along with the program. The second and third edition of the book Ponder My Thought was on Thursday, 8 August 2019, launched at the British Council Auditorium in Freetown. Engineer Andrew Kamokeli's writing plays a unique and important role in the political and social landscape of Sierra Leone. Admiral Samai caught up with both Professor Usman Sanko, who officially launched the book, and Andrew Kamokeli, and spoke to them on the importance of the second and third edition of Ponder My Thoughts in this interview.
We launched Ponder My Thoughts Volume 2 and 3. As you know, Volume 1 was launched in 2015. Volume 2 and 3 cover events that happened in 2014 and 2015. It's actually a compilation of all my articles written during those periods. And that's what we launched. I cover most issues in Sierra Leone, from politics to governance, to social events, to youth issues, to football, everything I cover. And it's more like taking a bird's eye view of what is happening in the country. And all of these events I capture on a weekly basis. And people like reading it. I've got a good readership. And I just compiled all of them together. It's got articles like on Pakaba, like President Kaba, Kumedia, Kumed the Man. It's got articles on football, like Waragwe's first football match. It's got articles on Ebola. It's got articles on politics, on the Samsumana saga. It talks about governance issues. Basically, it's written so that you get the reader to think about some of these issues. You take an issue, you analyze it, you provide solutions. Not that you're right, but at least sold in various supermarkets, mostly in St. Mary's Supermarket, Hill Station, Total Lights, Brookfields. I like journalism. My late brother was a journalist. I have a lot of association with journalists in this country. And William James, who is the head of the department, used to be editor of Salon Time, which is my newspaper. And she's now head of the department. And I basically know that she has a lot of constraints in terms of running that department, in terms of equipment, in terms of various things to run their own newspaper and so on. So I just decided, not that, because it's a compilation, it's all the events that happened, all the things I wrote about in 2014 in Volume 2 and 2015 in Volume 3. So it's a year, it covers 2 years. I already have material to cover later years again in subsequent volumes of the cover. I learned Volume 1 in 2015. Yeah.
I think that Sierra Leone, as we used to say, the Athens of West Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, with people like Andrew Kiley, with people like some of you who keep your manuscripts and you don't give them to me, we know we will get there again. We will get there. All is not lost. Ponder my thoughts. And here we are. And I feel really greatly honored to launch these 2 volumes of Ponder My Thoughts, Volume 1, Volume 2, ladies and gentlemen, is blue color over there, and Volume 3. That is Ponder My Thoughts.
Thanks to my colleague Admiral Samai for putting that interview together. Well, with me in the studio is Andrew Kamokeli. He's the author of the 2nd and 3rd edition of Ponder My Thoughts that was officially launched at the British Council Auditorium. Mr. Kelly, once more, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Abdul.
Let me begin with the forward by no less a person, Sinead Walsh, European Union Ambassador to South Africa, where he commended in his forward that there is simply no comparator to Andrew Kelly's writing in Sierra Leone to the best of his knowledge. That is not to say that there are no opinion pieces in the daily newspaper, such as those that have syndicated Andrew's article over the years. Coming from no less a person, Ambassador to Southern Sudan, Sinead Walsh, making some pretty commendation over your piece of writing. Take us through, first off, your inspirational journey to developing this niche of writing. What is it all about? What are you trying to achieve?
It's just an interest. I started writing when my late brother Christian, was the editor of Salon Times. And he got me interested in writing. I would normally write, but he got me interested in writing articles for the paper. At that time, I used the pen name I. And I used to write articles because I thought deeply about issues in Sierra Leone. So I kept writing, and then I got involved in policy issues and lots of organizations, and knew a little bit more about the country. And I thought there was a lot to write about, and I lamented the fact that people did not put their thoughts to paper. So I started writing this regular column, syndicated column, Ponder My Thoughts, and it touches on everything in Sierra Leone: politics, economics, social life, what have you. It touches on everything, football, everything.
And in the views of many people, most of those writing that you congregated to be seen as the 2nd and 3rd edition of Ponder My Thought started as opinion edition.
Yes, indeed. When I pieced these articles together, I would normally write on a weekly basis when I have time. And then a friend of mine who is a High Court judge told me once, he says, you should put your thoughts together and make them into a book. I think a lot of people are interested in reading that. So I did. I took up the challenge, and I published Volume 1 with the help of Sierra Leone Writers Series. Malam O is the Statistician General, has done a good job of that. So we published Volume 1. And obviously, because I write almost on a weekly basis, I had a big backlog, and I thought, look, I might as well get some more together and make Volume 2 and 3, spice it up a little bit. There are a few variations from Volume 1. So that's how I got to write the book.
What informed you on the title of the book, Ponder My Thought? You seem to be pretty much critical, not allowing your reader to decipher most of the things that are written in the book. How did you come having the title Ponder My Thought?
That's a good thought. I play a very big part in my religious organizations, and there is a hymn which it's not titled Ponder My Thoughts, but it's subtitled Verba Mea Oribus, Ponder My Thoughts. And I thought that was a very good thing to incorporate and say, have as a headline for my articles. It's my thoughts, as Professor Sanko said, and my thoughts are my thoughts. They're not necessarily gospel truth, but I try to be as true to myself as possible. For somebody to read and then have his own thoughts. So I ponder my thoughts so that you also ponder your own thoughts.
I took my time to go through the foreword of the Irish ambassador, Sinead Walsh. He reiterated that the wide range of topics that Andrew covers is illustrated in this volume, from frustration over the Ebola response to fond memories of Botown, from defending journalistic freedom to telling a story about a football match rudely interrupted by an alleged curse on a player. What are you trying to give as a kind of picturesque illustrating all of those things to tell a very strong message to the readership?
It's really just capturing what occurs in Sierra Leone. Sinead Walsh, who was the Irish ambassador, was an avid reader of my column, so I got her to write the foreword to this. And basically, I watch what happens during the week. It may be that a political topic is more topical during that week, or the next week it may just be football, or the other week it may just be youth issues. So I really just jump right through the articles. If you see from volume 3, you've got in 2014, which covers 2014 by incidentally, and volume 2 and 3, 2014 and 2015. You could see I wade through articles on Pakaba. He died during the year. Mm-hmm. At the start of the year, 2014, we had the Ebola, we had a big boom in African minerals. With the economy was booming. And then the Ebola set in towards the end of the year. And so there are articles right through that dealing with politics, with economics, with social life. But then I wrote about Pakaba, President Kaba, Comet the hour, Comet the man. And I think he was the right man at the right time. I wrote an article about Waragbe Stuff's football match, where you had two teams playing and one tried to play unfairly, and they threw Waragbe at an opposing player, and the game had to stop. So I compared that to my time at CKC, where we used to maybe take the Bow School boys to Moriman and rub lime on the foot of our players just so that we could get an advantage. It's taking a wry look at society. It's what you read about on a daily basis. I write about this little girl is a beacon of hope, writing about a girl who gave me back my phone after it was lost, which is very unusual in Sierra Leone. Yeah. So it's articles on everything.
Well, the most interesting aspect is one may be wondering as to whether you are restricted in most cases when you touch on governance issues, particularly so the trending activities, the economy, the current administration, what they're going through, whether all of those things are captured in and morphed into all of those volumes.
I'll tell you what, I'm not afraid to write about anything, even in terms of politics and governance. Mm-hmm. Some of my biggest fans are politicians. I know a lot of APC and SLPP top guns who like reading Ponder My Thoughts. The thing is, as long as you're true to yourself, they know what you're saying is the truth. And you don't make ad hominem attacks hitting at people for the sake of hitting at them. If you're true to yourself and you write articles and provide solutions, even if those solutions are not right, if they see you are being honest, I think people accept it. So I don't shy away from any topic.
Okay, let me hold a little bit and just welcome another studio guest here, Dr. Jonathan P.J. Sandi. He's a leader and chairman for the National Unity and Reconciliation Party, who doubles as a substantive chairman of the All Political Parties Association. He's here to talk to me on the contribution of APA and by extension also looking at today's International Youth Day on the theme Transforming Education. Doctor, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Abdurrahman.
Well, it will seem to many outsiders like it's a CKC affair this morning. And Lukamo Kelly and Dr. Sandi, both from that honorable institution school. Doctor, welcome once more to the program. How has it been ever since the conclusion of the 2018 elections, where your party did not make any meaningful strides by way of reaching your objective, bringing yourself into governance, and also contributing in as much as there, trying to see how much you can contribute to the growth and development of this country? Let's start from that point.
Yeah, thank you, Abdurrahman. Of course, you say this is a CKC affairs, yeah, but don't leave yourself out. You know, for the Western area, cover your PRO. And I remember when I was in sixth form, my elder brother here, Andrew Kiley, was also national chairman, in the 80s, Paberewa and all that. So when you told me this, meaning, oh, guess what? You'll be in the studio to ponder your thoughts with your elder brother. So I'm pleased. I'm just coming back home, sir. I was being away, and I come in, and now, as you know, I was in Cairo, Egypt, and doing some international assignment. So it's a pleasure to be back home. But I took this opportunity after a while to come back on TV, first to reflect on what I'm sure the day I was coming, that was the day this event was in British Council. I really wanted to go and sit there and then listen to some of the satires, some of the issues. You know, the way Big Brother writes, sometimes you wonder whether he's really an engineer. So it's a gift, I must say, you know, sometimes. And people doubt, those of us who went through science school in CKC and all this thing, how do our analysis sometimes come conceptually. But I tell you, most times people write well as a science student. I'm not trying to say you do it better than we do, but we have the nature of abstract and natural, I think, to give. So I enjoy his books, his writing, especially when the issues, as he said, as I was coming in, when he mentioned the day after day. You know, we live in a world of globalization, and we tend to think about the nation state. And the challenge the nation state have now, there are multiple and complex challenges that the state is faced with day after day. And when you see, like Big Brother was saying, when you see he writes something of this day, it tells you that can the state alone, you know, deal with those complex and multiple challenges? And that's where we are in terms of the nation state. Because when you look at the state in Sierra Leone, its institutions, whether from the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive, are they sufficient, are they strong enough to deal with the multiple and complex challenges which he has outlined in some of these books? And I'm sure I will better read and make my critics expose this more. But I'm sure that it will never disappoint our thoughts, and I'm sure that it is very constructive. But coming back to the issues you raised about my party, if you go to section 35(1) of the 1991 Constitution, people or a group of people established political parties not only to contest and manage the process of candidate nomination process for elections. It is very clear if you go there, you establish political parties for three reasons. One, to spread the idea of the political idea and disseminate issues of ideology that you trust in terms of shared values. Like, for example, the book where the Ponder My Thoughts every day is contributing. It doesn't mean the NGC, which my elder brother was the running mate to Dr. Kane Yankala, until they are in parliament, until they are in governance, he's a minister or not. But the party itself, you might not see NGC in this, but he's a leader in that party, which means that conceptually, in terms of preaching the ideology and how can we contribute in our little way to knowledge sharing and generating those knowledge which will prevent reduction of election-related violence, for example. So I see, and how do we, remember when I was in the National Security Office, he was in the policy unit in Tijan Kaba's government. These were the strategic thinkers. I remember very well, we used to go around, Kelly Conte and myself, and Languba and all these boys, so that we, in the strategic policy unit. So which means some of the things he even write, I say, oh, is this a reflection of what was going on behind the scene? Mm-hmm. So I think of all that, and this is where we come from. In other words, people like him and I and many others have the institutional memory of where we come from as a nation state when Tijan Kaba was there, may so rest in blessed faith, and where we are moving when EBK was there, and then His Excellency Brigadier Madabio. How much can you tap into the institutional memories we have, whether in terms of public policy reform, the engineering section, policy paper, or the national security issues?
Doctor, let me hold a little bit.
So as I say, political parties are not just established for elections. The second aspect is, it tells you in section 35(1) that political parties, number 2, can also contribute to national programs of social and economic character.
Doctor, you touched on a very important aspect, tapping into the talent of former government officials. I will imagine what could be the collective thinking of the citizenry in the state, that whether you feel you have a sense of the sphere that you guys, your talent are not tapped into by way of contributing to the wars of growth and development of the current administration. You're here, it's like what people normally say, a local parliament, don't buy Kelfasmati here. They don't buy Dr. Abdullah content here. You're all over the place on security issue, trying to design a roadmap as to what the security architecture is within the African sub-region. both outside and within. Yet still, back home, nobody seems to be recognizing your effort in, taking forward in all of these things. Look like Kamo Kelly, who would have been a very solid personality, should have been included in this current administration. I am not playing the advocacy for him, but that should be the collective thinking of so many people.
But the interesting thing is, Sierra Leone, as I say, does not lack human resource capacity. Mm-hmm. I always say in every office I've run, I've participated in, don't look at yourself as without you, others cannot do it. So what we are saying, if the current administration, is moving towards public administration and governance, and we can contribute in our own little way. We are all doing that, and this is why I'm saying this book is quite interesting. If you have a look at it, I'm happy that government officials, in fact, I was in the flight, I saw the president of the Bar Association was there formally too, and I liked the analysis he gave. So what I'm saying is knowledge itself, in terms of critical thinking and innovative things, is what we should be looking for. It doesn't matter whether we're in governance or not. For me, I'm happy of what I'm doing. If I've called upon, I'm sure likewise, Andrew Kylie, my elder brother here, we are ready to offer our service. It's a public good. What we are saying is, for me, for example, today is a big day. Although it's a solemn day, it's a mourning day, that 1 year ago we lost Stephen Sandy, who is also late Stephen Sandy, my nephew, who was the national coordination for the Campaign for National Unity Foundation. After Ibrahim Sano, of course, who a big brother here I know very well, was my national coordination for the Campaign for National Unity, which engaged a number of SLPP colleagues and friends and elder brothers in terms of the design of where we are now. I'm happy that if you evaluate what we had done in that small foundation, the Campaign for National, which is about students and youth, many of the boys who used to work with me, who we used to mentor and coach, they're in this government. Like, for example, take Ibrahim Sano. He's now the Deputy Director General of the Sierra Leone Roads Authority. He was my national coordinator. You take Sheikh Selim Fekar, who was secretary to Bishop Hompa during the reconstruction of the TFT process. He's now Chief of Staff and Assistant to the First Lady's office. So many of them, James Foundu now works with the National Commission, National Civil Registration Authority. Mohamed Pava have done masters. A lot of them went through mentoring and coaching. So in terms of desired impact, I'm not saying until Jonathan Sandy or Andrew Kylie are in the seat of governance, but those that have been mentoring and coaching through capacity building of youth and students, the Campaign of National Unity Foundation, they are now in governance. They are now providing the space. They are occupying that space in terms of policy and programming needs that are indirectly or directly contributing to the development of this country. So I'm a happy man. I can sit back home, as I say, go internationally and come back and then support. But I think that there's more to it in terms of, for example, in moving the state from public administration to governance. I just mentioned it here, that the state itself, with its institutions, are very small. Government does not have the budget to hire everybody in the public sector. So how do we move the state from public administration, which is just few institutions, to public governance, so that even those political parties and their leadership that are not in governance can be seen in the civic and political space in terms of rationality and contribution to policy making and implementation. Okay. And that is where the All Political Party Association becomes relevant as a platform for building trust, relationship, and so that we can generate what we call opinion advice on education, on health, and this. It doesn't mean we all have to be in parliament. It doesn't mean we all have to be in the executive arm of government. So I believe that if tapped, if called upon, as you saw in the Bintimani 3, many of us were working behind the scene. You very well know that political parties of different fronts, we were in the regional and district consultation. We also contributed to was looking at the future of democracy in this country. Okay,
until you have something else to actually contribute to this, Mr. Kelly, then I will bring you to a very important aspect of this book, where you reiterated that Sierra Leone is a country with many ethnic groups and people in various walk and religious settings, sometimes producing startling and humorous results. These upheavals are also captured in the books. They strive to produce reasoned argument for various positions taken and not unduly partisan. The book will be handy for various categories of people, those who want to know more about this politics. We've just concluded the Beauty Manual 3, for which is a fulcrum of our national unity. That has been re-emphasized by His Excellency the President, that if we are to move as a nation, then the outcome of that particular conference should have informed the pathway of our development trajectory. Did the book actually take an insight into the conclusion of the Beauty Manual 3 conference?
The book, as I said, captures a certain point in time. It relates to articles I wrote in 2014, 2015. But the very Ponder My Thoughts column is written almost on a weekly basis. And incidentally, I did cover the Bintu Mani conference. I was there. I gave views about the president of the Bar Association, who was pilloried for what she said. And I sort of supported her because she has a right to speak up. And some of the things that have happened in this country, we've had people sell us out when they've been in institutions. In fact, I did write an article in one of these books called Pontius Pilate Alive in Sierra Leone. I always try to draw a corollary between this and some religious event. Can you imagine how Pontius Pilate sold out Jesus Christ? There are lots of people in this country selling out other people because when they are in positions, they depart from what they were saying before. And what will happen to posterity, to their children? Obviously, if Sierra Leone turns out to be a basket case, they will have themselves to blame. Just like Pontius Pilate is being mentioned all the time in church and suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified. I mean, if you are the great-great-great-great-grandchild of Pontius Pilate, you wouldn't like that. So it's sort of drawing corollaries to that.
And he described Pilate's relationship with the Jews had been very stormy.
Yes, it was very stormy. Mm-hmm. But then when they brought this case to him and he saw that obviously if he had supported Christ, he would have been in a little bit of a bother. Even though he knew Christ was not guilty, he sold him out.
Mr. Kelly,
a lot of people do that in Sierra Leone.
As an opposition party, you still do not effective in governance, but you have a very big stake. What's your general impression with the entire governance system in the country under the leadership of our revered President, retired Brigadier Julius Maada Bio, especially so on the aspects of the economy, the aspects of building a national cohesion, improving the human capital, which has been the flagship program of this current administration. What's your impression?
Well, I always say the glass is half full, not the glass is half empty. There is no government that is really that bad, and I think they have their good sides, they have their bad sides. As Jonathan did mention, I think it behoves all of us to support the government in power. Okay. If Sierra Leone turns out to be good, it's good for all of us. I'm in the private sector, and the private sector produces worldwide 9 out of 10 jobs. Despite everything that people might be saying in governance and so on, not everybody can be a minister, not everybody can be a president. But if you can help the country whilst you're in the private sector, it will help. I'm assisting this government in a lot of ways. I support them in various sectors in which I work. I have good friends who are ministers who have top positions. So I don't think my politics colors that. All we do is we do it for the glory of Sierra Leone. But whatever you might say as a Sierra Leonean, you're looking for national cohesion. If we're not cohesive in this country, if the tribes don't get together, the regions don't get together, we're going to falter whatever we do. The country is too divided and social media has not helped the situation. I would not really like to be part of that. I would like to write reasoned arguments. If I critique something happening in the mining sector or with the economy, it should be with the hope of trying to bolster people who are in power to be able to look objectively at those decisions and perhaps modify them to make decisions that will be for the greater good. So that is the purpose of my writing, not necessarily to criticize. I don't shy away from difficult issues. I do mention them, but I prefer solutions.
Okay. Dr. Jonathan Sandy, let me bring you to something indicated in this book, for which Andrew Kelly chose to call the bad boys in blue. We recall an incident where some students were grossly manhandled, the bout of taking the exams at the General University campus in Bo. In this book, Andrew Kelly indicated mistrust of the police has been high, human rights abuses by the police were much too commonplace. We are very much too commonplace, and many of these fell right at the doors of the SSD, that's the Armed Special Security Division of the Sierra Leone Police. An institution that was meant to protect a vulnerable public became adept at assaulting them. You develop an interest to actually comment on what really happened a couple of weeks back in the township of Bo. We are students, instead of giving them the leverage. What used to happen at the Jala University, even in the institution, we don't have your complete fees, you will be given the authority, you will be given the permission to take your exam, after which your result will not be published until you pay your fees. But this is not the case. It's all over social media. The Bar Association has outrightly condemned, the Legal Link condemned, other organizations outrightly condemned it. Yet still, the police are not finding their winning ways of seeing how the public will better appreciate them in handling riotous conduct of citizens.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. I mean, before even the Bar Association and other human rights-based organizations intervene, you will notice that on Facebook and on social media, we were the first campaign for national unity, and my party came out with a strong statement about which our parties basically think about Julius Malema. Majority of the party members in the National Unity and Reconciliation Party are youth and students. Mm-hmm. They're the most vulnerable in society. And so when as I speak here, from here I'm even going to see what I can do with Airtel money. My nephew, Pay Momo, is a student in Bo Ajala University. In Messima, that's where he lives. He was driven out. He has not taken his exams because our dad is still in Texas and I've been away. He cannot afford to pay now. He has been driven, he has been deprived to take his third year exams. I can show you the text message. I can show you the Facebook. Imagine how much that hurts me personally, let alone I talk about the national issues. So this is not something sentimental. It's not political. This is why today, as I said, in the UN team, transforming education, what progress have we made? What lessons and challenges do we see in this country? We need to really take stock of that. We need to stop and reflect. And I know very well that this government, in their manifesto, in their public policy, mean well in terms of designing the kind of thinking through the two-track approach to education service delivery. One, it is clear that the free education approach, which targets the primary and secondary school, and then the other manifesto thing that was committed to was the establishment of a student loan scheme. Why I think we have been making progress in terms of the free education targeting primary and secondary education, yet we are yet to see how we can evolve the process of creating and establishing a revolving fund scheme that we think about student loan, because that's fundamental. And when I was campaigning as a presidential candidate, when I spoke about fighting for the political rights of students, I mentioned the right to education. If we're a country of abundant natural resources, go and do we tell you here that when Fode Sanko and others met in Lome, when they expressed the need to establish a Strategic Mineral Research Commission, of which he was designed, that was the RUFP, was to see our natural resources, what we call the surplus when we sell our natural resources, rent, because this is the rent in terms of revenue, should go towards that commission. And that commission money must be used to support social protection schemes, such as education, health, and that. And that's the desire we some of us still have. In other words, how much does productivity, the rent we get from iron ore, bauxite, rutile, and all of that, some percentage should be set aside to support the establishment of that kind of scheme. But it's not happening here. And so therefore, as much as we are making progress, we still have to reflect on what quality of education and how do we support those vulnerable students who have the ability. They can access education, but the affordability is one problem. It's about the AAA, affordability, access, affordability, and accountability. Now, when you see the authorities, and I saw the Deputy Minister of Higher Education was in Jala, went to Mokone, and we need to also to be proactive, not reactive. What I'm saying is it was, in my view, it was a bit late, where the college authorities are taking the decision to ensure that some students do not take their exam. And when you come to the action of the police, I'm also in a social media platform called Criminal Justice System, where we have colleagues, Andrew Sanko and others who are subject matter experts in criminal justice and police reform. And as I sit here, one of the projects I'm currently working with the UN and the AU on is designing what we call modern policing law for Africa. And the emphasis, the new approach is to emphasize community policing. How do we, the policemen, see what they do as a public good, as a service? Safety and security is a public service. What kind of relationship should exist between the police and we as civilians? That's where we are struggling with. And it's very disappointing if I tell you what is going to that, the conversation we're having in that platform. It disappoints with some police officers still trying to defend that, the state, the nation state. This is not police service. Can I say this on TV again? We worked very hard with Kisbido and some of us to move the notion of security sector reform and police reform from the state to citizen security, and creating the enabling environment for the private sector to be able to attract foreign direct investment, and we move on. But when the police is busy with gross human rights violation, when I saw those audios, I was a bit taken aback. Having worked over 2 decades on security sector reform, both locally, regionally, and internationally, and we have been emphasizing through standard operational procedures that colleagues should be very sensitive to 3 principles. 1, the responsibility to protect, the R2P. 2, international respect for international humanitarian law and respect for human rights. The dignity of everyone. But this is not happening. And before I conclude, one of the things when I'm back home here, I am intending to visit the IG and visit other colleagues in the police sector, is to ensure that the Independent Police Partnership Board, who has the responsibility for investigation of that type of police custody, people in police custody on humiliation and that, should be taking their responsibility. I wonder whether that capacity is strong enough.
Have you gone through their mandate?
Yes, I've briefly looked at that mandate. The mandate is quite okay.
Yeah.
It's quite okay. They work to support, advisory support, and they are being directed under the Office of the Attorney General. The Director of Prosecution also comes into it. But perhaps at some point, the legislation, the Act 2013, which established the Independent Police Partnership Board, we need to reflect on that again to see whether they will have the mandate to adjudicate, to take matters of the police abuse to court.
Exactly.
Because maybe that's where we should be moving. But I'm saying
and this is where the constraint comes in.
We should not lose hope. We should not lose hope. That's what I want to say.
Mr. Kelly, back on this aspect of the Bad Boys in Blue. Let me remind you of something you highlighted here, of the ugly incidences involving trigger-happy police officers became far too commonplace. They gave excuses galore, but independent observers are of the view that instead of becoming protectors, they were perpetrators of violence. Normally, when you do all of these things, do you prefer solutions as to how such situations should be averted?
Yeah, no, that was part of an article I wrote on reviewing the previous year.
Okay.
And as Jonathan said, one thing I always say is that the very policemen who would point guns at the APC office, outside the APC office at the crowd, when APC was in power, are the very ones that will stand on the street and point the gun at the APC office now. So basically, they have to be careful not to be at the beck and call of any government in power. I think as an institution, they've fallen short of what is demanded of them. And it's a pity that...
and the people's thinking, I'm sorry, the people's thinking about the police force now is becoming like a regime force. They only toe the line of their masters while in government.
Well, I'm sure that can be changed. I'm not an expert in that area. Jonathan is an expert in that area. But I know that there are certain things you can do to reverse that. The Independent Police Partnership Board is one issue. The shortcomings have been mentioned. But there are issues of governance basically that we need to look at. It's not only the police. I mean, there are various institutions have fallen apart in this country, irrespective of the government in power. And basically, we should maintain the integrity of those institutions. And most of my writing on governance and politics is based on the sanctity of those institutions, not only the police.
Let me take you to another, it's amazing paragraph here on the SLPP own goals are plenty. You reiterated that since the 2012 elections, the main opposition SLPP party has perfected the act of scoring own goals. The party has embarked on election malpractice, intimidation and violence, and intolerance of each other's view, with some of its members adopting hegemonic tendencies that could shred a mantra of one country, one people. I will quote liberally from the head of the PPRC Political Party Registration Commission, Justice Salah Thompson, on the complaint brought to him on the recent SLPP convention election. Political parties should not be too eager or anxious to interfere with their constitutions, more so when the interference is seemingly to compensate or accommodate an individual or personality. The rest goes on.
Well, that's what I'm saying about the book, that it could also serve as a historical book. Those were the days when we were in SLPP, we had those tumultuous events, and I captured that. Okay. But I did not only concentrate on SLPP, I also wrote about APC with their flag bearer elections. I wrote extensively about the Samsumana saga. There was an article I wrote about Samsumana, dead man walking, and some people did not like that. I know somebody wrote and rejoined that towards that, but we could see what did happen. I've written articles on the law. The law is an ass, based on the election judgments that they gave. I also wrote the law is still an ass on the Samsumana issue. So I don't really shy away from that. But sometimes also you have conflict between parties. There's an interesting article on, on Frank Cabo and Charles Magai, when they had this rumble in the jungle. About some disagreement that they had, and an illustration was drawn for me by De Monk showing both of them in the boxing ring. Well, I would not just like you to think that the book is just about politics. I mean, if you wade through the articles, you will see, for example, I'm writing about human development issues, education ministry's Bami shutdown of oldest private school. I wrote about some of the teachers that have impacted people. They came, they taught, they impacted, they departed. I've told you about this little girl is a big beacon of hope. When divine invokes the divine, in defense of the poor Gari, defending why we should eat Gari. So it wades through everything about Sierra Leonean life, and it's not just about politics. If you read through the other one on volume 2, I wrote extensively about Ebola. Ebola in Kailan rescued the perishing. Ebola is war, frontline troops dying at the battlefront, from Hippocratic to hypocritical oath, talking about how the doctors were treated. I wrote about social lives, Waragbe soft football match. Pajaret of Bo, this is an you come from Bo. This is an interesting article. Pajaret, as you know, Jonathan knows, is a 94-year-old man who died a few years ago. Yeah. He was a friend of my dad's. Everybody knew him.
Southern Pharmacy.
Pajaret came from Gloucester. Gloucester to Bo. And he stayed there forever till he died. You have people like Prince William, who went to Bo. You have people like Prince Ford. You have people like Dr. Ila, who came from Cambia. Yeah. Now, the question to ask is, why do all of these people who come from various parts of the country congregate in Bo, and they're treated with respect in Bo? Yeah. Because Bo is a melting pot, and I tried to give reasons for that. I took a bird's eye view of what happened when I was a young boy in Bo. I recall the Kissy Town area. Edmund Michael, the Charles Magai, the Tola Thompsons, all the big people in this country worked in Bo. So Bo we used to have a factory there by the police station, J Mata factory. Yeah. And why is Bo like this? Is it perhaps because of that school that breaks bounds, the Bo School Boys, that brings everybody together in this country? Is it because it's in the center of town? Why are people so permissive? Is it because the newer school, CKC has overtaken Bo School now, but at that time Bo School used to be a good school until we beat them. So all of those issues come in. And people so like that article that I had to write another one on Sweet Bo. You know, so these are the sort of articles that go into books.
Yeah, on a very serious note, Kamo Kelly, on the question of encouraging young Sierra Leoneans to adopt the act of writing, we seem to be lazy in that regard. Well, what could be a beacon call?
You know, there's one person I've got to single out and praise. That's Malam O. Professor Usman Sanko, the statistician general. He single-handedly started the Sierra Leone Writers series, and he encourages people to write. There was a friend of mine who said, "Oh, I want to write about Creole poetry." I said, "Go and meet Malam O. Whatever you want to write, they can channel you so that they publish those books. And they publish books in Sierra Leone now. But young people don't write to read and write. They just want to go into social media, exchange a few lines, this APC Baranta, SFPP, this, that, plagiarism, and provoke each other. But how many people sit down and read serious articles? As Malamo said during his own school days, they used to vie with each other to read James Hadley Chase novels. Yeah. How many people read those novels now? You know, so we're trying to inculcate the virtue of reading and writing among Sierra Leoneans. And I'm pleased that the mass comm department is using Ponder My Thoughts as an example of good writing, just to teach the journalists how to read and write. Okay. And I think it's very important in this country.
Doctor, anything to contribute?
No, absolutely. It's a wonderful discussion. And this is tied up with the global theme of the UN for the International Youth Day today, which is about transforming education. And what we are here discussing, Ponder My Thought, for example, is something really I will encourage any one of us to read and get intuitively inspired on that. I'll also make sure that for the campaign for National Youth Foundation, our students and youth, we will try to get some more copies by that for our library in number 69 Victoria Street, so that we can encourage our we can mentor and coach our youth and students to read the reality of life and see how they can reflect on that. But again, as I did say, concluding, we are here, we will continue to advocate for the political rights of these youths and the students, the right to education, the right to health, the right to jobs, and the right to shelter. Because it's when you are in school in Bo or you are in university, for Jala University, it's not only about the tuition fee. How do you survive? I remember we had, in our days in Fobe College, Chief Minister would tell you, David Francis, Prof, would tell you, we are operating 001, you know, and then we were best at room terror. We had a concept of room terrorism. That is when you cook, you have your live wire, you know, all those things we went through. We do not want to see it as the future of our education sector go. We do not want to see our generation, the generation after us, struggling to get value for money in terms of education. Okay. And therefore, I want to appeal that the education policy in this country, we need to reflect. And lastly, for me, we should look at political parties as a platform for national interest.
I honestly will let you comment on the arrest of some political leaders within the All People's Congress Party, for which 22 of them are still at the Padeva prison. What APA is doing to ensure they got their freedom. Stay with me. Here's Dr. Jonathan Sunday. Muslims in Sierra Leone yesterday joined their counterparts across the world to celebrate Eid al-Adha, the Feast of the Lamb. My colleague George Elliott Sam witnessed a congregation prayer at Hill Station and files in this report.
Eid al-Adha is one of the most important events in the Islamic calendar and is observed by almost 1.6 billion people around the world. It is the second of the annual Islamic festivals. Eid al-Adha marks the end of Hajj, a pilgrimage to Mecca, and commemorates the Prophet Ibrahim. This festival is considered holier than other major Islamic festivals, Eid al-Fitr, which falls at the end of Ramadan. In this regard, Muslims in Sierra Leone have joined their counterparts across the world to celebrate the Eid al-Adha, which is the feast of the Lamb. Star Television witnessed a congregational prayer at the Imo Zikri Mosque Hill Station in Freetown.
Allahu Akbar, 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 Allah. الله أكبر الله أكبر
ما نقص منكم وتندروا ديسباونا وتوفى كل يوم رزقكم every day وتن الله ما كيو أسعسك الله سبحانه وتعالى بجيو يا ابن آدم يا ابن آدم يا ابن آدم oh وين آدم in the kingdom and remind you na say every day we do clean before you come on your house you go on your working place the dunya they call you this dunya they call you yani the ground where you the waka pantapi they call you watakuruna the ground they say ya ibn adam oh you wena adam in pikin tamsuna treba ki don't grab for waka ala zahari pantapmi wa alamu and remind you anna masirakum you ending ila batnina inside me bele watallakuna you the laugh you the jump all day ala zahari pantapmi wa alamu and remind you annakum if una not take time una fear Allah tabukuna una get for go cry fi batni inside me bele watafrahuna you they get joy yani you they glad for what you they get but you know the glad for worship Allah la zahari pantap me I they tell you say annakum tu'adzabuna fi batni if you not take time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala get for go punish you inside me bele Allahu akbar fa ya ibadallah una wayna Allah enslave them ittaqullah haqqa taqwa ade people na including myself make we all fear Allah like how we support for fear wala takfuru law no grief for deny Allah ilamu ya ibadallah una wayna God enslave them rasul alayhi salatu wassalam say anna iblis satan alayhi lana way Allah don't swear every Eid ibi Eid al-Fitr ibi Eid al-Adha like today yasi way the sand the grab ide hala bita one fi kulli Eid from any day fayajtamiu ahlahu if people them they come gather in the nearam fayaqulu then they ask iblis ya sayyidana oh we boss man akhlabaka watina your problem today ana nukassiru don't come for help you fayaqulu satan go say walakin Allah watina me problem today Allah don't bring message from Jibril was say qad khafara li hadhihi al umma all enslaved them when the Muslim them they forget them fi hadhihi al yawm they forgive them for all the mistakes the way they don't commit inside this day what in me problem way don't hurt me fa alaykum awalla una all una can join me and tasqalu make you enter inside them heart make you spoil the heart with sahwa make you put them on the wrong thing them wa surbil khamri make them begin with the drink and chat make them with the go dance table hatta yabkhalahum Allah take God vex ban them ikhwata mustami'un al-kiram be respectable listener fawajibun ala al-aql it's very important for anybody who gets sense and yamna nafsahu they make it today make you control your soul fi hadhihi al-yawm inside this day and as-sahawati wa surbul khamr not today for drink not today for bamboo not today for lie not today for thief not today for kongosa not today for ruba wa yadum watina this day today na for la you day ala ta'atillahi wa sifallah wa lidana immak rasul alayhi salatu wassalam tell me is a ijtahiduna try yawmul eid the day of Eid al-Adha fi sadaqa una wayna big people them way God give una open hand wala una for charity to the one the way give for come greet una wa amalu khayra una do good wa birrul walidain una respect una parent them wa salati una complete una prayer wa zakati for zakat.
For Star News in Freetown, I am George Elliott Sam reporting.
Thanks so much, so my colleague George Elliott Sam for putting that report together. Conclusively, let me come over to you, Andrew Kelly. I know this could be of interest to you because you're a subject matter expert on this. We've seen a situation where the country is confronted, especially so with the Mines and Mineral Agency, where there has been the suspension of mining companies on the consideration that most of them seem to be the arose, in my words, paraphrasing the intention of the Minister of Mines, Radofori Yoki, younger brother, saying that most of them don't seem to be transparent in their beneficial ownership, right? He cited like the Tonkolele mines, where they exported something like $23 million of iron ore, for which they accounted only for something like $400 million to the government. And the people of this country are not benefiting. So both Shandong and the Tonkolele mines are closed. suspending their license to operate. You have contributed much more in the extractive sector. What is your impression about what is currently going on, in as much as this current administration is forced to having genuine investors to come in the country?
Well, I think there is no doubt that for a long time, mining has contributed over 70-80% of our export earnings. And in the 70s, in fact, it used to contribute as much as 20% of our GDP. Window is dropped down to about 5% now. Obviously, mining employs a lot of people. Communities need to benefit. And I support any government that wants to bring more benefits to Sierra Leone from mining. Because people say we've been exporting minerals for years. We'll be mining in Sierra Leone from the 1930s, but what have we got to show for it? So I commend any government that wants to bring sanity to the sector. However, I'm a little bit cautious about certain things, because in the mining sector, there are three things that encourage investors. The three top issues in mining to encourage investors, apart from the minerals themselves, because they have to be there, are security of tenure, consistency of policies, and stability of the fiscal regime. We must make sure that those are also in place, because we're also trying to attract investors to come into the sectors, big players. Obviously, there are players in the sector that are rascally and are not keeping to our rules. That is quite a different matter. But there are ways of getting people to comply. I'm always, on a personal basis, as a professional, I think that you must exhaust all the remedies before you stop. Stopping a mining operation is not easy. It affects the country, it affects the investor as well, because you've still got operating costs to meet and so on. And it does not engender confidence from people who want to invest. Having said that, I think the ministry or the government has every right, if they find out something is going wrong, to censor the companies and make them comply. How they comply is quite another matter. The jury is still out on this.
Okay, what would be your message out to the public with respect to the Volume 1 and Volume 3 of the Pond of My Thoughts, encouraging the public to have them to read and see so many things? I see the Tambayo saga, 9 lessons but no carols. The street trading discombobulation, the ABC Book 1, Paradise Lost in Those Troublous Times, Onward Christian, Ebola Soldiers, you name them.
I think I'll encourage people really to read this, because quite apart from the serious topics that it tackles, it does tackle various topics in spheres of life in Sierra Leone. And it can also serve as a historical text. You take these, it will tell you everything that happened in 2014 and 2015, and it takes a humorous side of life. I explain about things, very complex issues, in very, very simple language, so that people understand what I'm talking about. And I must say, most people think, oh, why do you write these articles about government or about the opposition? Well, nobody has ever, I don't recall anybody who has taken umbrage to it. The last time, as I mentioned on another show, I met my friend Alpha Khan. Alpha Khan is a mining engineer. I studied at Nottingham. I studied at Newcastle. We're all in England together, so he's been a friend of long standing. He says, Andy, you wrote about me. I saw you wrote that I'm a Latter-day Saint. I said, yes. He says, anyway, it was a good article. I liked it. But, you know, people don't take it in that vein. If they see you're hitting at them because you're trying to belittle them, it's just not nice to make ad hominem attacks. But if they happen to be in the article and you're trying to make a point, and the point is to make this country different, people appreciate it. So I would say, please ponder my thoughts, buy my books. It's at St. Mary's Supermarket, Total at the Light, Salon Times Office, different places you can.
Well, I must reveal this to you using a platform that the public appreciation about you is you combine both dexterity as a public orator and a very good writer.
Oh, thank you very much.
That is frolicking in the minds of people.
Thank you very much. I hope I speak sense.
Exactly. And I keep telling them that it's as a result of you being a product of Crescent King College. Equally so for Dr. G.P.J. Sunday. Yes, Doctor, let's conclude on the incarceration of political heads of the main opposition, All People's Congress Party. you being the substantive head of the All Political Party Association, what are you doing to ensure their release?
Yeah, I'm just coming back home, but in my absence, my colleagues have been making frantic effort to talk with the chairman of the PPRC Commission, and I'm sure tomorrow we have another meeting with him. Remember, the PPRC have put out a press release temporary banning, suspending public rallies, and despite our meeting with the PPRC Commission to discuss how can we contribute as APA or individual political parties to the prevention of election-related violence, because this is something we have been thinking through, what we call the APA ERL.
And I see your work very much compounded now.
Yes, because you see, look at the historical timeline in terms of since multi-party democracy was ushered in 1996. You will see that multi-party democracy, where we're having presidential, parliamentary election, and beyond that we have local council elections here and there. So it's like we are constantly, every year we have elections, meaning the propensity for election-related violence has been out there. And like Big Brother they say, the role of the social media has compounded issues again in terms of hate, political intimidation, abuse, fake news. All of this has come into the civic and political space. So the question is, how can we, now that we have 23 or more tribes in this country and 17 political parties, which is an opportunity, because political parties, whether they are young or small, they should serve as platform for national integration and social cohesion. They are the only institution we have. Because before you register political parties, go and will tell you that you need to meet number of criteria. One, Muslim and Christian and for balance religiously. Number two, gender sensitive issues are there. Number three, every district must be represented there in terms of founding members. So which means all tribes and district region are founding members of each political parties. But the question then is, when it comes to political party reforms in terms of institutional administrative capability, are they effective and efficient in this country?
Okay.
Because we tend to look at political parties as only for elections, which is not the case. I just mentioned it here. If our party, for example, we can decide, say 2023, for example, or any election that is coming, we are not participating, but we are focusing on building the capacity of advocating for the political rights of youth and students, the right to education, like I'm here doing. And we have a foundation, a fund to support their education based on Section 35(1) of the 1991 Constitution. So you can contribute to programs of social and economic of national character, like the government policy on education for national development. This is where we're aligning our vision to, so that even if we cannot make this first election like we did in 6 weeks, last election 2018, in the future, the generations we are mentoring and coaching, can they adhere to what we call generational democracy and make sure that the values, the norms and values of democracy, they can nurture it and we can make this country better. So in our view, we are contributing to, before we have put in a team together to make sure that they go to Constituency 1110 to do our fact-finding, to ensure that they visit our brothers and sisters in Panemba Road. In fact, on Friday last week, we have some of our members, thanks to Aziz and others who went to the courtyard to witness the stuff. So we are doing that, but the whole thing is to see how we can dialogue to ensure that we contribute towards prevention.
Thank you very much.
Election-related violence.
Thank you very much, Dr. JPJ Sandi, for honoring this invitation, and also to Andrew Kamokeli. Hoping to see each and every Sierra Leonean have the opportunity to go through this particular book. We have so many things to learn as a result of this. Thank you so much. Most it's a pleasure having both of you in this edition of the Good Morning Show. Today being, is it the 12th?
Yes,
the
International Youth Day.
International Youth Day. On behalf of management and staff of Star Television, we want to wish every youth in this country a happy International Youth Day. Till then, I've been the presenter of this program. My name is Abdul Rahman Kamal.